Hi everybody, and welcome to Nick Talks. This week's episode, we've got an amazing guest called Michael, who set up an organisation called Paternity Fraud UK. So what is paternity fraud? Basically it means when a man is told this child is yours, and then eventually down the line he finds out it's not his. I can't imagine how that feels. I've got a granddaughter who's 2.5 years old. And I knew when she was born, she wasn't my biological granddaughter because I'm her step-granddad. But if that child was taken away from me now, I'm not sure how I would cope. So then me putting myself in that situation of being a biological father and then finding out that child's not mine, I think it would destroy me. But we'll get into that with Michael in a minute. Now, it was about a month ago. I was on Twitter, like I normally do, and I saw a post from Michael from Paternity Fraud UK, and I looked at it and read it and went, oh, that's quite, what's what I'm looking for? That's quite relevant at the moment because I'm writing my 3rd book on feminism, and part of that is about the breakdown of the family and breakdown of relationships. And I've done a little section on paternity and paternity fraud. And I'd already wrote that when I saw his tweet. Now let me tell you what I wrote in the book. So we need to understand that Liverpool Johns Hopkins University a decade ago did some research on this, and they found out between 1% and 30% of children who have had operation in that hospital think who their father isn't their father, and they don't know. Between 1 and 30%. They've averaged that out and said, we reckon it's about 10%, but that's still a horrendous number. In Germany, they've done a lot of work on this, and they've also worked out it's about 10% of children who think their father is Mr. A. Turns out it's not Mr. A at all. In Austria, it's actually a crime for a woman to tell a man he's the father of the child when she knows he's not. And in France, it's actually illegal to DNA test your child without the court's permission. So all over Europe, it's all completely different. So let's get into this a bit deeper. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you all to Mike. So Mike, thank you for coming along and thank you for being a guest on the podcast.
Nick, absolute pleasure. Thank you for contacting me, and I'm more than delighted to talk about this subject. Fantastic.
So I think the first question for me is, can you tell me your story?
I can. I got married, and the relationship was very rocky. Let's put it that way, without going into too much details. And I'd left my wife. On the day I'd left my wife, I was in another country. I was in Germany, starting a new life, and I got a phone call. She said she's pregnant. Got a father. So I came home. Did the right thing, because obviously that, been told the child is mine. It's my wife. I believed her. And then I noticed about when the child was about 4 to 6 months old, if memory serves me correctly, I couldn't see any features that it was mine. I could see the mother. I couldn't see me. So I actually raised it with her, and I said, child doesn't look like me. And she just dismissed it and said, oh, it doesn't look like me either. And that settled my nerves at the time, because it did cross my mind. And then there was a bit of a whispering campaign about my ex-wife, and I put it to her. I said, is the child actually mine? And she was very, very defensive, but it was what I wanted to hear. She was, absolutely, that child is yours. It couldn't be anybody else's. What you've heard is not true, and it settled me again. I just thought, okay, let's put it to one side, the way she defended herself.
And again, there's only one answer you wanted from that question.
Yes, I love that child so much. Even now, I do. It'll never go away. It'll never go away. But then there was an incident. Again, this is about 6 months later, and again, these doubts would come and go. By the way, it wasn't constant doubts all the way through. It was a little doubt here and there. But on the whole, I believed I was, on the balance of probabilities, I thought I was the child's father. And then I took a photograph of him one day on my car, and in this photograph, I could see he didn't look like his mum, and he didn't look like me. And it was like a suggestion in my mind to say, look, you're going to have to get a DNA test. So I wasn't working at the time. It was during lockdown as well. So I saved up the money to get a DNA test, which was an at-home test. Did the test thinking, this is just all in my mind. I'm putting 1 + 1 = 5. I'm getting this wrong, but I just want it gone past the point where I couldn't live with it any longer. And my worst nightmare came true. I found out on that date that the child I loved, deeply loved and still do, wasn't mine. And my whole world ended that day. It was deeply upsetting for me, and still is to this day, and I think will be, Nick, for the rest of my life, to be frank with you. After I found out that I sorry, it's quite emotional for me, this, but I do want to talk about it. After I found out I needed help, I needed to find people that knew about paternity fraud. And I couldn't, there wasn't much out there at all. There was various solicitors who dealt with it. There was no support group that I could find. In the UK, certainly, there is in America. There's a wonderful gentleman called Carnell Smith, who runs like an American, he's like an, happened to him in America, and he started to help change the law for men in the United States. But there was nothing in Britain. So everything I've learned about paternity fraud, I've picked up as I've gone along, including the legal process, what rights men have, and what redress in the criminal and civil courts there is available for men.
Before we get into that side of things, can I ask you a couple more questions about your personal story?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
I think one of the things that would hurt me, on top of the child not being biologically mine, would be, tell me if I'm wrong and tell me if this isn't relevant to you, but would be two other things. It would be the lies and the deceit of someone I thought I could trust and love, meaning your wife, not the child, obviously. And the other thing then, what I think would get to me is everybody laughing at me.
Thank you. Yes. So when I found out on that day back in 2020, what hit me was the lie that I've been told to me, the deceit, the hurt of being lied to about something monumental like that. And at first, I did feel very, very humiliated by it. It really did. I felt that, what are people going to say about me? Are there going to be loads of jokes around our social circles about what's happened? And I withdrew. I withdrew away from things. And it dawned on me a few months in, where I spoke to a friend, and she was wonderful. And she said, hold your head up, because you've done nothing wrong here.
And that's exactly what I was going to follow up with then, is you've done nothing wrong. You're the one who was working in Germany, found out your wife was pregnant, and then came back.
Yes.
To look after her and the child, and do what you should do as a man, which is take responsibility and be a protector. So you did everything right. It wasn't your fault that you were lied to.
That's exactly, and that's exactly what my friend said at the time. She's a wonderful lady, and I'm still very good friends with her now. And that's what she said to me when I didn't even want to tell anybody. I was that ashamed. I was like, wow. I kept it quiet. Our family kept it quiet. We didn't want to talk about it. And then when I actually finally rung her up, and I was going to the shop, and I said, I need to speak to her. And she was amazing. And she's still an amazing support to this day, my friend. But that's what she said to me. Hold your head up high. You've done nothing wrong here, Michael.
Shame is something that we all feel sometimes rightly and sometimes wrongly. And in the same year you were going through that, I went through something which is not comparable to what you went through. But when I was sacked from the charity I founded for being a Nazi and a racist, my first thoughts and the first week of me being incapable of fighting back was all because I felt shame. I felt shame of, look what I've done. Look what my big mouth has gotten me into. Everyone's laughing at me. And for the first week I hid. And it was only after the first week I decided I wasn't taking it. So I know for a fact what I went through is nothing compared to what you went through. But I had the same human reaction of, let's run away, bury your head, so no one can look at you, no one can point at you, no one can laugh at you. And I went through exactly the same emotions.
That's it. It was a very overwhelming, isn't it, Nick? It's that's exactly what I did. I buried it. But no, let's this hasn't happened. I'm not telling anybody. People are going to be pointing at, laughing at me in the streets. And I can say to any men out there that are watching this who have experienced this, or if they do experience it, which I won't wish this on anybody. People will not laugh at you. You've done nothing wrong. Other people have been absolutely amazing towards me about what's happened. I've had people shaking my hands, hugging me when I who found it. I've had to tell people, look, actually, this is child's not mine. And everybody has given me so much love and support around me. And I'd say that to any man that if this is, if you're going through this and if you've withdrawn, please don't withdraw. That's the worst thing you can do, is to get your head up and remember you've not lied, they have.
Exactly. Let's go back to that first point. You've done nothing wrong. You and the child are the victims in this. The child then has missed out on that loving parent who was there. And then, but let's go back to your story. So you found out the child wasn't yours. What happened then with your relationship, with the child? What happened after that?
So what happened was the child's mother wouldn't let me see the child. Denied, at first insisted I was the father despite the DNA evidence to the contrary. And then I did start seeing him again. That didn't last long. And I have no relationship with him at all.
And is that because the mother stopped you?
Yes, she will not let me.
So that wasn't you saying to yourself and to her, because I'm not the biological father, I'm not interested anymore. You were still interested, because I can imagine. I mean, again, let's go back to my granddaughter. I love her the world, and she's not blood related to me, but I love her the world, and it makes no difference to me that she's not my blood, because obviously I wasn't there when she was born per se, but a few days later I was there, and that bond I have with her, I know for a fact can never be broken.
Yeah,
Can't be denied access to her. If me and my wife got divorced, then maybe me seeing my granddaughter could be a hell of a lot harder, or maybe impossible to do. But that would break my heart, and she's only my step granddaughter.
Yeah. It's I totally obviously, but we didn't know, me and the child, that we weren't related biologically. But the love that you've just described for your step granddaughter is exactly the type of love that I still have for that child.
I would guess it's probably 10 times more.
Yes, if anything, it was like, because I did have some fleeting doubts, and it did bother me. At the same time, I didn't stop loving him. But what that did was, once the doubts were removed, if anything, it was nice. It was a relief. It was very sad and heartbreaking, but I definitely wanted to carry on being in his life, and that's been absolutely no chance.
And that was the relief you talked about, as in, if you were the biological father, you have to love that child forever. Once you found out you wasn't a biological father, you then had a choice. And you made the right choice by saying, right, I found out now, it's not the child's fault, and I'm still going to love you forever because I'm still your dad.
Yeah, exactly. As far as I was concerned, he was, how do I put it? Psychologically and emotionally, my son is probably the best way to describe it. Because obviously I was aware that biologically, okay, we don't share DNA, but I didn't care. I wanted to carry on very much being his life in a capacity, whether it be his stepfather, adopted father, or no, and that just didn't happen, unfortunately. That was something I really wanted to carry on with. That was opposed by the mother.
When was the last time you saw your child?
I saw him via a video chat, December 2020.
And when was the last time you saw him in person?
Oh, in person, so that would be nearly 2 years now. I think in actual person, Halloween 2020 was the last time I actually had we were together in the same room, and it's lovely. So that's the last. So it's nearly 2 years now. I've not had any. Yeah.
And the mother now doesn't contact you, doesn't talk to you, doesn't want you anywhere near.
Absolutely not. No.
Which then goes into the next thing. You have no legal rights, do you?
Nope. My name was is now not on the birth certificate.
Oh God, I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah. It's quite a straightforward process. It's you apply to the courts, and then there's a DNA test, a court-approved DNA test done, and it's a very, very straightforward. So my name's not on the birth certificate anymore. I have no legal rights, and that's it. It's just he was the centre of my world 1 minute, and it's like that's it. He goes, and horrible thing.
So, is your fight with her now over?
I am currently suing her under the tort of deceit in the county court for damages. It's a very common remedy for victims of paternity fraud in the UK to go down that line. So that's ongoing.
Right, and I'm glad you've said that, because you're not doing it for the money, because there's probably no money to get anyway. Let's be honest, she's not a millionaire, so you're not going to get $500,000. You'd be lucky to get, £100 plus £30 victim costs, and so you're not going to get anything. But we need to start sending the message through society that paternity fraud is not acceptable, because any other walk of life, fraud is fraud.
Yes.
Except when it comes to paternity fraud, because we give too much leeway to women in an era now where they want to be equal and want equal rights. We still give them far too much leeway with special rights. And one of their special rights is, I know I'm the mother. You've got to believe me when I say you're the father. What sort of justice and equal rights is that? A woman can say, I'm aborting this baby, and as the father, you have no say. Where's the equality in that? And we need to get some equality in relationships between men and women, especially when it involves pregnancy and children. So I hope you carry on that case. I hope you win, and then come back on this. I know, so this is only a small podcast, but come back on, and hopefully we'll get you some bigger podcasts to go on. We need to start saying to society, this is not okay.
Exactly.
Emotionally raping men isn't okay, because that's probably what you've been through. That's absolutely horrendous. If this was a physical attack, you'd get over it a lot quicker than trying to get over what you're going through now.
Yeah, I agree, and I do have therapy. I do have to see. I've been seeing a counsellor who actually is one of the few people I could find in Britain who has got experience with paternity fraud at a good level, and he said to me, and it's very sad to say this, but it's true. He said, "This pain you're living with, you really are going to have to learn to live with it. It's grieving," and that's what he said. It's a pain that I know that I'm going to have probably for the rest of my life, caused by this woman and one lie.
And if you're grieving for the death of someone, you know you can get over that, because eventually, we all know deep down inside we all die. We all know we go either to a better place or we go nowhere, but we all know there's an end to our life. And even though it might take some people longer to get over it than others, we know it's coming. But this is the death of someone in your life who's not really dead.
Yes.
Then you're thinking, I could walk past this person in 5 years' time in the street and I wouldn't know who they were. And I want it to be that child's dad. And it's the pain that doesn't stop giving pain.
You've just absolutely spot on with what you've just said there. It's a very, very intense feeling of bereavement, but I know I could potentially, he's alive and well. So I know he's not actually dead, but he feels like he's dead. And I could bump into him one day, I don't know, at a football match at the local supermarket, and I don't know what I'd do if I saw him. I don't know.
Yeah, and the odds are you wouldn't know it was him. After another 5 years, you wouldn't even know it was him unless you stood next to his mum. Because kids change so quick, so fast, you just wouldn't know. And I can't think of anything. That's why I want to talk to you today. I can't think of it.
I'm grateful.
Have you heard of someone called Toby Young? Toby Young was cancelled 3-4 years ago, and his life fell apart. And because of that, he spent a couple of years thinking there was no help and support for me. Everybody turned against me, and I lost my jobs, and there was nowhere I could get some emotional support, any advice from. And because of that, he set up the Free Speech Union. And it was the Free Speech Union that got me my job back. So it definitely works. And you've done something similar because of what's happened to you. And you saying and looking around going, there's no help and support for men like me. You've done something about it. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, of course, Nick. At the time, when I discovered I was a victim of paternity fraud, there was no sort of, how do I put it, one place I could go to. There were solicitors that had experience with it. There was nothing that I could find based in Britain anyway about this. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to do something myself so that in the future, other men are not going to have the struggle that I had to go through, the legal issues that I had to go through. And also, and this is the bit that I'm really, really want to get to, is the emotional support. And I didn't have access to other men. People have said, they knew someone who this has happened to, but I wanted one place to go for any man in Britain to be able to go to one place and get the help, and that's what I've done. So what the website I've set up is www.paternityfraud.uk. And if any man, or actually as well, I even put on the website anybody affected by it. So that could be family members as well. If you're a grandmother or a grandfather or a brother who's been told a child is, and you found out later as well, it is open.
Yeah, because you're right. It affects grandparents. You think that child is your grandchild, and all of a sudden you find out that the biological mother goes, "No, it's not," and I'm going away. And it's not related to your son, so therefore you have no access as well. It can destroy families.
This is what it does. This one lie can destroy so many lives. And this is where I thought, well, I've got to do something here now. What we've been through, I thought I've got to be there for other men. So what people do is they can contact me through the website. Another victim of paternity fraud, he runs a Facebook. I don't like Facebook, so he does speak on Facebook, or they can come through on Twitter. So they're the three ways to come through to me. Then when any man, so far actually, it has been men that have rung me who are victims of just found out. Some could be historical, but it tends to be men that's recently found out. We have a very, very lengthy chat about what's gone on, and I hear men in various states of distress, from anger, sadness, grieving. And by the end of that phone call, we look at an action plan to move things forward for that man. So what we do is we've set up a WhatsApp group for men to join, where they can speak to other men in one place, where we all help each other. We could be feeling good, bad. There's a few jokes going there. It's a real good form of therapy for men. I also have, if a legal issue needs addressing, say they want to have the name removed off the birth certificate, or they want to look at a child arrangement order or something, I have a lady who helped me, and I can name this lady. Her name's Claire Hobson. She's absolutely amazing, and she's a paralegal trained in the family court. She's legally qualified as well, but she's not a solicitor, but she can help any man through that process. She's based in Manchester as well. She's absolutely amazing. So any issues that come through, I can say, right, okay, if you need that help, I've got Claire who can help you. Sometimes men have their own people, or sometimes they don't need any legal advice, but that's there for men as well. Claire's got extensive experience with paternity fraud. Well, she has now after meeting me, and also we can also, if a man is developing some mental health issues, if it's depression, if it's thinking about suicide, which I have talked to men who are suicidal, that we can get them signposted to another counsellor who has experience with paternity fraud. So it is a place where if you're a victim of paternity fraud, whether you're the wrong father or anybody, if you're a member of the family, and you're affected by it, you can talk to us, and we can help you through it. And this is what I want to do now, is to help other men and other victims through this.
Have you thought about setting yourself up as a charity?
Yes, we have. Two other gentlemen that are victims of paternity fraud as well. They've agreed to become trustees, so I will be. We've got the three. We've been speaking to a sort of charity sort of expert person. I didn't know what I was doing, so I've been in contact with them. He's advised us of what structure of charity to go. So we're meeting next week, me and the other two gentlemen, who are going to be trustees. We're going to go for it, and we're going to look to raise funds to get, maybe some better equipment to help us. Maybe even, this is something that I'm really keen on, is that some men might not be able to afford help to legally address what's happened to them. And if I was in a position, some men could be on universal credit, so the court fees are free, but they still need help. So we could be, hopefully, with enough funding in the future, if there is a man out there that comes along and he is on universal credit and he needs help, we could look at helping funding some legal representation for them as well. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, like I said, I've set a charity up and I've helped other people set charities up. So if you need any help or advice, contact me outside of this, this chat today. I can help, especially around funding. If you want to know which funding bodies you can approach, if you want advice about how to write your funding bid, if you want advice on how you can do fundraising so you can get the money and spend it how you want, I'm a wealth of knowledge. I can help you all that free of charge. As much as you want, whenever you want. I'm on board for this. So so hopefully the guy who's helping you with the charity structure, hopefully he's doing it for free. But if you're being charged for stuff, come speak to me, because I know most of it myself, won't cost you anything, and lots of things that I don't know, I know people who can help us for free.
Thank you so much, and God bless you, Nick. I'll definitely be contacting you.
Yeah, I know it's like trying to set a charity up. For the first year trying to do it, it was like reading gobbledygook. I couldn't understand what they were talking about. The Charity Commission's not very helpful anyway. I didn't understand the documents I was reading, but then, a decade down the line, I understand it all now, but I didn't understand it 10 years ago when I was trying to set a charity up. It's really, really complicated. But I think charity is the way for you to go. It'll open so much funding for you. There's things you need to make sure you don't do at the beginning that will have an impact on you later on down the line, which I can talk to you about. But absolutely, charity is the way you need to go.
Thank you. Definitely speak to you about that. I would appreciate that.
Yeah. So I think it's great that there's a help group now that men across the UK, if they're suffering and got the same bad news you got 2 years ago, have got. I mean, let's be honest. You're not solving all these men's problems, but you're a one-stop shop now to put them on the right path, so they don't feel alone, so they don't feel overwhelmed, so they don't feel that no one cares. And if that's all you achieve with your group, do you know what? That's massive. It's massive.
There's one thing I'd like to just mention on this, if that's okay. One of the gentlemen that I'm helping at the moment, he fell victim to paternity fraud through a fake DNA test.
Wow.
And I need people to be aware of this phenomenon. There is, you can, I couldn't believe it when he spoke to me. And I went on Google and there they are. He was tricked into believing a child was his via a fake DNA test. The lady.
Well, to be fair, you can buy fake COVID tests that prove you've not got COVID. So, I mean, if there's money to be made in it, somebody will do something illegal to make money at it.
Yeah, it's. I just. He was tricked into it, and I'd just like to say to him, be aware of this. This is happening at the moment. And this is something he is going to be bringing up with the relevant authorities and what have you. But please be aware that this is happening. That there is fake DNA tests. When these paternity fraudsters are doing this, where they're convincing men that they're a father of the child, and they've produced a fake DNA test, and then he found out much later.
So, what would your advice be? So, if you're a man in your situation that you were 2.5 years ago, and you have doubts of the paternity of your child, what would your advice be? Would it be ignore it because of what you've gone through? As in, you must have days sometimes where you think, I'd rather have never known and just got on with my life, And there's other days you must go, well, no, the truth's the truth, and I'd always rather have the truth. So, what would be your advice to that man who sat there listening to this, going, I've heard the rumours about my wife. I can't see myself and my family in my child's face, which is quite common. Just because you can't see yourself in the child doesn't mean that child's yours. But if you've got those doubts, what would you advise?
Everything you've just mentioned there, especially where I thought I wish I'd never done it. I thought that, but this is such a fundamental part of your identity and your life that I believe that you need to know the truth. The child needs to know the truth. You need to know the truth. I would say to men, do the test, find out the truth, and preferably, and I can't stress this enough, when the child's young as possible.
How do they do the test?
So what will happen is you'll get 2 swabs, 2 pieces of card.
But where does the test come from? Are these men?
Oh, okay, sorry, yes. There is, top of my head, there's 6 approved DNA test companies in Britain, which the government, that they're happy with their standards. Okay, so I used a company called Alpha Biolabs for mine. They're well known. So there is, if you look on the internet, there is approved ones. Okay, that the government can do. I just use Alpha Biolabs. That's just for your information. Then they do what's called an at-home test. So as long as you're on the birth certificate and you've got parental rights, you can do a test without the lady without the mother knowing. You've got the legal rights. She doesn't need to know. I did it without her knowing. Maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong, but I think I did the right thing.
I don't think it's right or wrong. I just think it's your right to do it.
My right to, yeah. So I have come under. Not everybody. The odd person did criticise me for doing it in secret. I don't care. I had to find out the truth. She'd already told me on a few occasions that I'm the father, so she's not going to just suddenly admit it if I asked her again. I just thought, no, I needed to find out. Yeah, and then it's quite straightforward. You get 2 swabs, 2 pieces of the card. You both put your names on it, and you and it turns the card. It goes from pink to white. Send it off, and that's it. And I hope anyone doing it comes back the result you want.
And how much are those tests approximately?
So an at-home test, mine cost £99.
Right, £100.
£99. It's called a peace of mind test. Another thing to note about that, if you do go down that line, is that an at-home test does not have any weight in law, so it can't be used as evidence. If it did proceed to a court, another one would have to be done, a court-approved test.
Of course, because you could have faked that. You could have, So the chain of evidence isn't there for that to be admissible in court. Yeah, absolutely. But you're not doing it for court. You're doing it for your own peace of mind.
That was it. Yeah, I did it for my own peace of mind, thinking, oh, this it's all in my mind. It's definitely mine. And yeah, this is just no, and it went the wrong way. You're
thinking, I'm doing this because I'm an idiot. Let's get this over and done with, and I can get on with the rest of my life, because let's just get, 10, 12, 20 years ago, you couldn't have done this. There was no such thing as DNA testing. So this is only a modern thing. So why wouldn't you do it?
Exactly. In the past, the only way you could sort of disprove paternity was by blood group analysis.
Yeah, and even that wasn't 100% accurate.
No, not at all. In the past, but now we're fortunate enough to have DNA testing, and I would say to people, I know how painful it is, but the truth is best with this type of thing. It's not, you can't ignore it. I would recommend it, and if you are going to DNA test, certainly the younger the child is, the better, definitely.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah. The younger the better, because it's obviously some of the men that I've been helping, and they found out from varying ages, from 6 months the child was, up to some men I spoke to, they were adults when the children, when they all found out. And certainly from speaking to all them, I'm of the opinion it's much better to do it when child is young, very young, baby, definitely
well,
young as possible.
It's better for the child, and let's not forget in this discussion, the child. This isn't just about men being wronged, which they are, which I'm upset about, but I put the welfare over the children higher than the men. I always do that. So let's not forget about the welfare of the children. So the younger we do it, the better for the children.
Of course it is. Absolutely. The child is, as well as the wrong man, is innocent too.
Yes, they're the victim.
The impact of this can affect them very badly, very, very badly. The impact, and I'm so of the opinion, having to speak to all these men from varying ages, when they found out that actually, as a baby, as young as possible, is the best time to do it. Definitely.
No, absolutely, and yeah, that makes perfect sense. That was. Not only was that a fantastic conversation, mate, I can't remember last time I had a conversation that meant so much to me, that was so emotional, was so distressing. We're talking about something that no one ever talks about, that most people, I've always known this could happen, of course, but it was only until I was writing this book that I'm telling you about that I realised the scale of it. And we just need to talk about it. Like all problems, the more you talk about it, the better chance we've got of dealing with it.
Exactly. And I would go further, Nick, and say this is probably the biggest taboo that still exists, this paternity fraud. It's a massive taboo subject. And hopefully by, me speaking to you and you doing the interviews, you talk in your book, the organisation that me and the other gentlemen are going to be, the charity we're going to be setting up, we need to get this out there. It's not acceptable. It hurts people. And it's also, like I said, the uncomfortable truth is the child at most will have to live with the consequences with this. This is it. It's hurting you. I'd say to any woman thinking of doing this, you're hurting your child the most here.
Yeah, and I think that's the point where we end this conversation, because that you've nailed, you've hit the nail on the head there. This hurts children the most. So forget about the men. It hurts your child the most. So let's make sure we can reduce this and stop this going forward. So for anybody who wants to contact Mike or contact Paternity Fraud UK, have a look at the description, all these details and the website, everything will be in there. So feel free to reach out to Mike at any point. I'm sure he'll be grateful and welcome him as he has with this interview. And thanks, Mike. This is not an easy conversation to have. You know, it's really upsetting for you, but you're doing the right thing. And the more we talk about it, the better. So thank you very much for coming on this podcast. And I hope to speak to you again soon. And we'll talk outside of this about setting up a charity, the charity structure and stuff like that.
Yes, please. Thank you. It was an absolute honour. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome. Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.